Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/neighbors from hell for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. The Queen is dead. Downstairs neighbor called the cops on me at 2 a.m. Vent/rant. We've been having issues with this woman for over a year. She thinks we're too loud and bangs on our ceiling/our floor for any little thing, even in the middle of the day. We've tried to go speak with her, but she just threatens to hit me, spits on my partner, and told us to go fuck ourselves. So, we avoid her. Yesterday, we found out she called around all the local police stations to report on my partner. He has a sticker on his car from when it was his father's, a cop car. She told them he was abusive and violent towards her, and of course, made herself out to be the victim. We found this out because they called us yesterday to seek an explanation. Last night, I'm in bed, my partner is at work, I'm snuggled up with our cat, sound asleep, and suddenly, I get a knock on the door. Our next door neighbors have guests that sometimes go to the wrong door, so I just kind of waited, half asleep, and wasn't going to answer it. There was another knock. Louder, more aggressive. I got out of bed and looked through my peephole, and there were two cops outside. I'm convinced they were at the wrong door because what? I opened the door and they say they got a disturbance report from my downstairs neighbor for stomping around. I inform them that I was literally asleep. They told me to keep it down, and they leave. She's getting more and more unhinged, and I'm kind of at a loss. We tried ignoring, we tried talking, she talked to management, she tried to get my partner fired from his job that he doesn't have, and called the cops on me for sleeping. I cannot wait to move. First step, paper trail, documentation, talk with your landlord, make sure they're aware of this. Keep avoiding engagement, do what you can, make sure that you're building a thorough paper trail though, that's going to be very important. If you can set up any internal cameras in your house that are specifically noise or motion detecting, that could be really good in the future for preventing a he said she said situation where it's her word against yours, or I guess a she said situation in this circumstance. I'd be very curious for some recommendations for some of you that might actually have more experience with this than I do. Because it also sounds like that this neighbor isn't just targeting them for being loud, she's also going beyond that. My assumption would be that because the boyfriend has a sticker on a car that used to be a cop car, she probably assumed that he was a cop and went around calling to police stations trying to get him fired. If she's going to that extent, something's got to be done about this, and I honestly am not quite sure where to even begin with this, because this goes beyond just simply fucking with her and trying to make her look insane or doing wellness checks to slowly drive her into oblivion. She's trying to do actual harm. So definitely paper trail, documentation, and do what you can to keep yourself secure and safe and have evidence to support yourself so it's no longer a her word versus yours. Fuzzy trichome, neighbor pouring water on driveway in freezing weather. I'm at a loss of what to do about this crazy woman. We're next door neighbors with side-by-side driveways. We got along fine until my boyfriend, now husband, moved in. Then, for whatever reason, she began finding any reason to start some drama. First, it was our dogs. She began calling animal control because our dogs walked from our door to our backyard without a leash, on our own property. She put Ring camera on her side door to watch us, so we put a fence along the concrete driveway to keep her from spying on us. She complained to the city about the fence, then began arguing about property lines. She calls the police about anything. Somebody stepped on her side of the driveway. Somebody walked on her sidewalk. Somebody parked in front of her house. I run a business from home and she began harassing customers about where they parked. She reported my business to the city and tried to get it shut down. She would take a picture of a car that stopped briefly in front of my part of the driveway to let a passenger out and make them think the car parked and would not move. After somebody finally looked into it, they saw she was lying, and I was told the police in the city would no longer respond to her complaints. And after 4 dog-at-large cases, at large in my own yard, were dismissed, I think animal control is done with her as well. So now I see her early one morning in 20-degree weather pouring 2 buckets of water over the shared part of the driveway. If a car parked in my driveway and someone got out of the passenger side, they would slip and fall. I have cameras. Is there action I can take, or do I have to wait for someone to hurt themselves? Update. I made a police report. Thank you all for your input and advice. To answer some questions that keep coming up, she is not old, senile, or suffering from dementia. She is conniving and knows how to work the system. For years, she knew exactly how to legally harass me with constant calls and complaints, and knew how to make her lies and exaggerations sound legit. When one way stopped working, she was clever enough to figure out another way. That's not someone whose mind is not clear. Maybe she has some mental illness, but she's sane. And whatever her problem is should not be mine to deal with. My business is not the problem. It's what she decided to target after animal control and the police didn't work. There's no traffic flow, no more than if I had a few friends stop by during the day. Everything about it is legit. And I have neighbors on the other side of me, across the street, and behind me, and not one other person has complained. She's black and so are we, but it's not that. But my husband's ex is white and his kids are mixed. When we got into it, she threw out the comment, "That's why your husband likes white women. That's why he has white kids," which I thought was weird and creepy for her to comment on. Why would she know or care who my husband's ex is? His mixed children are the same complexion or darker than my black child, so she wouldn't know that just from seeing them. I've always felt, and the comment confirmed it for me, that she's lonely, bitter, jealous, and taking it out on me. The police report is definitely the best option to go for this because you want to make sure it's on record that she's doing this. Keep all records of her pouring the water on camera because if someone does slip and fall, they might first try to blame it on you. Assuming that your driveway is more than a year old, because trust me, that does matter. And by the way, for those of you who are like first-time home buyers or getting into a new like townhouse or something along those lines with a driveway, if the driveway is less than a year old, do not use rock salt on it. It will corrode the driveway and cause a lot of problems to the structural integrity of the driveway. My neighbors paid this price, and after salting their new driveway, had to pay upwards to about $5,000 to $6,000 and not have access to their garage or driveway for almost a month. So just a quick little heads up on that. But assuming that OP has a driveway that's over a year old, she should probably get out there and begin salting the driveway before she goes out with the water. Because the problem is, and it's not like she can just chip away the ice, because that is a thin layer of ice. Like that is a very spread out thin layer that's gonna be very hard to chip away at. So salt or anything like sand to give traction is gonna be your best friend to counteract that. You can also use kitty litter. Honestly, that's a really good one to do is anytime that happens, just get like maybe half a bucket full and then proceed to just spread it over the ice so that way there's enough traction and the kitty litter will absorb any of the remaining ice or water vapor, and hopefully by the time the sun comes out, everything will be fine by then. But definitely be proactive about it because chances are if someone does slip and fall in that ice and hit their head really hard on something, that could be a brain injury, a spinal injury, or even a death on the property owner's hands. Things would probably get complicated because she's the one putting the water there, but because it's on your property, that could be an argument that you had the negligence to not deal with it. So I don't know what the law would state in terms for this, but definitely keep thorough records and try to get ahead of her shenanigans. That's probably your best option to avoid any future headaches or grievances. Fact or false, think about it. Been peeping on me for 9 years and intentionally harassing me. Then a rant. Bit of a short one. If you're being harassed with a security camera pointed into your home, do this. Put up a windblown flag so it triggers the camera all day long. And my neighbor finally turned off his security camera after I did this. Fuck around and find out. Other people have suggested buying one of the wacky, wavy, inflatable tubed arm man things and putting those in range of the camera. Basically, the idea is to make sure the motion cameras are constantly recording. The point of this is to keep them constantly recording and filling up the drives. If it's a cloud-based storage, well, that's a lot of additional cost per month they're going to have to do. If it's an at-home physical storage, well, their drives are very quickly going to fill up. Basically, anything that's constantly moving to keep triggering the motion sensor will do the trick. Because sometimes you're going to deal with someone who, despite you asking, they're not going to reposition the cameras. But, hey, if you can't go the ethical way of handling this, well, just fuck with them. Works pretty well. This one's brought to us by u/public welcome 7589. What do you do with aggressive blacksmith neighbor? As in the title, there's a guy living in the countryside in Poland who is very aggressive. Yesterday, my brother and I told him to turn down the music, and he attacked us and beat us. The police probably won't do anything to him because it turned out that we were on his property. This man is recognizable in the countryside because he once beat someone up for destroying his tomatoes when there was a regional football match in the village. Nobody does anything because I feel like people are afraid. He inherited a plot of land and is engaged in agricultural repairs and blacksmithing. At the same time, it is suspected that he drives a rare model of car. Is there any way to make fun of him without calling the police and preferably anonymously? The guy bent a steel fence with his bare hands and carries the trees cut down by the village as if they were made of feathers. So, I wouldn't want to be his target. What the fuck do you guys have going on in the Polish countryside? Good God. So this context will be important later, I promise. There's a comment thread below that I want to take some interest in. Zarel510 states, maybe become his friend and don't make him angry. Bro. But OP later goes on to say, man like him cannot have friends. That is just a small part of his behaviors. He is living with his weirdo wife, and I guess he releases the tension because he can't stand her. Realistic Weird 4259 responds, I would just suggest feeding them both some wayward children, but that's generally frowned upon. So now that we have a dossier on this person that's written like a poorly done SCP entry, let's find out the full story here, shall we? Agreeable Nail 7211. I accidentally found my neighbor's post in this subreddit complaining about me. Here's my version of the story. Vent rant. Too long didn't read. My neighbor is annoyed by me playing loud music from my phone while at the same time regularly plays very loud techno music, tries to plan revenge on me and to slander my name anonymously on Reddit. Yesterday, I was cleaning my house and put some music on my phone speaker to make this process more pleasant. Around 5 p.m., I went outside to take out the trash and found my neighbor standing on the border of my property when he shouted that I turn down this shit because nobody can listen to that. I responded that if he listens to loud techno music, then that is okay then. He didn't answer and left. A bit of background. This neighbor has been playing loud music frequently to the point we heard other neighbors knocking on the wall to discreetly indicate their annoyance. I'm not sure whether he heard that or not. This occurs at random times during the day, sometimes in the morning and sometimes at 1 to 3 a.m. I complained to him once and lost my temper, and also I told his mother, with whom he lives, about the problem. Later that day, he came again. This time he knocked loudly on my window. When I went outside, I saw the neighbor and his brother. They looked furious and prepared to fight me. The brother screamed, "Are you gonna turn that shit down, or should I turn it down for you?" I sensed that the tense atmosphere will escalate in seconds, so in advance, I punched the neighbor, and in the same swift movement, I punched the brother too. After that, they bravely ran away. This morning, when I was going to my parents' house, I heard him shouting that he will smear me on the internet. Later, I found his post on the subreddit. In this post, he claims that I'm aggressive. I turned to this type of behavior in self-defense as a result of experiencing bullying in my life. He then recalls a situation from 3 months ago when a drug addict was trespassing on multiple properties. This man is recognizable in the countryside because he once beat someone up for destroying his tomatoes when there was a regional football match in the village. Nobody does anything because I feel like people are afraid. I saw him, the drug addict, destroying my tomato plants, and I beat him up to scare him off my plot and to make him stop doing that. What the fuck happens in Poland? On the same day, I received thanks from various people and that I was not the only one to have my crops destroyed by this person. He inherited a plot of land and is engaging in agricultural repair and blacksmithing. I am not a professional blacksmith. My work is focused on repairing agricultural tools and machines, occasionally commissions from historical reconstructions, basic woodwork, and some artistic jobs. As an example, recent restoration work on an old painted building. At the same time, it is suspected that he drives a rare model of car. I don't think that my ownership of a rare car should be frowned upon. I have owned a variety of cars in the past, including very cheap and old ones, like a Daewoo Matiz and a Fiat Cinquecento. I was able to purchase this car due to taking various jobs since 16 years old, part-time and full-time work. Just for a little bit of background, I'm 98% sure a Daewoo Matiz, if I'm even pronouncing that properly, was the prelude to the Chevy Spark. So, not anything incredibly rare unless they're living on the countryside and a vehicle alone is already extremely rare. This guy bent a steel fence with his bare hands and carries the trees cut down by the village as if they were made of feathers, so I wouldn't want to be his target. So, I'm not that strong. The fence was very old and rusty and poorly installed by my uncle. Moreover, the tree that I took to another village resident was not carried on my hand. I fastened some rope around my back and pulled the tree using the strength of my whole body. But I can see why somebody could interpret it like that. I'm really offended by the comment he left under one of the responses describing my significant other. Man like him cannot have friends. This is just small part of his behaviors. He's living with his weirdo wife, and I guess he releases the tension because he can't stand her. Calling my loved one a weirdo and that I can't stand her is highly disrespectful. He has never met her, and grounds his opinion on her appearance alone. At the same time, I find it interesting that she's considered to be my wife already. I guess we can save up on the wedding expenses then. The post is already deleted by the OP, but I'm posting them in the comments section. I won't leave this without any consequence. This was definitely a treat because the first story was written like a deranged cryptid entry, and the second one was actually coherent. It made a lot of sense. Personally, in my opinion, it sounds like OP has everything covered and they're more of just venting about someone who tried to slander them on the internet, which I understand. But honestly, what you should do, OP, is keep doing more cryptid shit to scare him. Find more things to do that seems like they have obscene amounts of strength required just so that way he stays away from you. He already thinks you're some kind of woodland brush monster that's told in children's fairy tales, but, yeah, just keep it up. 77 Witty Woman. We've started recording my neighbor's antics, and she's not happy. Almost a year ago, me, 47 female, and my daughter, 18 female, were gifted with a new neighbor just before Christmas. There are 2 duplexes at our address, and we live in the first unit. So when our curtains are open, we see our neighbors coming and going. It's been pretty peaceful, and we've all gotten along just fine in the almost 4 years that we've lived here. Now, the new neighbor. We'll call her Vicky, I'm guessing 60-ish. She moved into the other half of our duplex just before Christmas. I remember this specifically, as we had made Christmas puppy chow, a common Midwest sweet treat, and brought her some as a welcome gift. We met her little terrier, who was skittish, but we didn't think too much of this. Vicky was not a good communicator. She mumbles and it's very hard to understand her, but we hope to start on a friendly note. We adore animals. We have 2 dogs and a cat. Feed another neighbor's cat who's always left outside, and we feed the birds. Our previous neighbors had 2 dogs that our dogs loved to interact with through the fence, giving each other kisses and nuzzles. We hoped this dog would be their new bestie. This was quickly proven to be not the case. The first time our dogs met through the fence, her dog reacted to ours by viciously snarling through the fence. Now, we thought that they'd probably warm up to each other. He may have been intimidated and scared in his new home. My dogs are a little bigger than her terrier, but not huge dogs by any means. Our bigger dog is knee height. The backyard woes were enough to deal with, but then we start to see a pattern of this dog running loose in the front courtyard. Once a while is one thing, but this is actually a daily occurrence. She has no control of him, and it's actually pretty comical to watch her trying to catch him. At first, we tried to be understanding, but it became so frequent that I asked her to please keep him on a leash, as I'm afraid of running him over. He runs right into our parking area and into the street. She mumbled incoherently, but I did make out that she claimed he chews through his leashes. Unfortunately, nothing changed after this exchange. This has continued and escalated. He has come at my daughter and I when we didn't have our dogs with us. My daughter also witnessed him charge another neighbor's elderly mother, who was so startled she picked up a stick to scare him off. We walk our dogs daily, and if he happens to be outside, he will run at them aggressively. Next, we bought a chain leash and put it in a little gift bag with treats and a note, asking her to please be careful with him for his safety and ours. We continued to have the aggression through the fence, and it was almost impossible to simply let our dogs out, as she always leaves her back door open, allowing him to just run in and out when he chooses. We never leave our dogs out for extended periods, just long enough to relieve themselves between walks. I have to point out that I have never seen my dogs start these quarrels. They run out into the yard and do their business, then the little terror shows up and initiates the brawl. Now, this is when it really got tense. About 2 weeks ago, our dogs were having one of their skirmishes through the fence. I was trying to pull my dogs back in. Of course, they are reacting to him, jumping and barking as dogs will do, when a guest of hers, while watching this little terror and not intervening, said quite loudly back into the house, "You should call animal control." I responded, though I knew she was not speaking to me, "Oh, you want me to call animal control? I will call animal control." I was livid. My daughter got very upset about the entire situation, worrying they would take or blame our dogs. Damn anxiety is a bitch. I was really trying to be courteous to Vicky up until this point. Truth be told, my daughter was reining in my inner Karen. But this was the last straw. Once my daughter calmed down and realized we are definitely not in the wrong here, we made a plan to start recording each and every one of these incidents. We literally have dozens of recordings of this little monster running off leash. In some of these, she is nowhere to be seen. In almost every one of them, our dogs calmly watch their antics, sometimes barking back when he barks and jumps at our window. There's also a video of him coming at us as we're trying to take them for a walk. Again, off leash. This is the only time she apologized for his bad behavior. Today, he was off leash once again and my daughter was recording. This time, she realized she was being recorded. She grumbled something about it through the window, but it was incomprehensible. She then knocked on the door to confront my daughter about recording her. My daughter confirmed she was indeed recording and explained why. Vicky mumbled and made some excuses about how hard her life is because she's caring for her disabled sister, an elderly mother, and asked my daughter not to call animal control. She never said she was going to. My daughter reminded her we have simply asked for her to keep her dog on a leash or in a kennel to avoid him running around unleashed. We did not and do not want to call animal control. We're recording her and her dog to defend our dogs. We didn't even consider doing this until the threat was made to call animal control on our dogs. Of course, she didn't make the threat, but she also did not negate it or apologize for it. We're often outside. She has had ample opportunity to address it without even needing to come to our door. So, it's only a matter of time before the terrier does bite someone. And you may not be the one to call animal control, but someone will be calling animal control. And unfortunately, if someone else is calling animal control, it might be because blood was drawn. And if that's the case, that's not good. You've already done everything in your power to try to help. You've given her a metal leash because she claims the dog chews through them, which she should have definitely used it. The chain leash would have worked perfectly, but she refuses to use it. Instead, she lets her dog have free reign over the entire property to where he's allowed to harass people, and chances are he's probably getting into the front yard because he has a path straight from the backyard to the front. Probably has a way to wiggle under the fence or something like that. Now, I don't know what specific steps should be taken in this situation, but you do need to call someone. And they need to put a stop to this before the dog does actually bite someone and draw blood, and the dog has to be put down. You're not being an asshole by preemptively possibly calling animal control to let them know there's a terrier on the loose and needs to be brought in. That's kind of why they're there. They're not going to instantly just put him down the moment they get there. But something needs to be done before there is no choice but to put him down. Like, keep in mind, you have been put into a situation where you're dealing with a neglectful dog owner. It's not your fault, the terrier's fault, your daughter's fault, or even your dog's fault. It's your neighbor's fault. She's the one that's allowing the dog to do this and to get away with it without having him go through proper training or even having the proper amenities to make sure he's not terrorizing the entire area, and she's refusing to. There's nothing wrong with putting a stop to it preemptively and possibly causing some grief for her and the terrier before it becomes something where blood's drawn and there's no longer a terrier next door. Alafo Buffalo, headlights shining in my window at 3 a.m. I've been living in my house for about 15 years now. Almost every workday during this time, my neighbor that lives behind me would shine his headlights into my bedroom at 3 a.m. I've grown accustomed to it, for reasons which I'll state below, and it's recently come to a screeching halt due to the actions of another neighbor of mine. See, this person who lives behind me, we will call him Bob. He works a late shift at work. He usually gets home around 3 a.m., which is why his headlights are glaring into my window at that time, as he's pulling into his driveway. At first, it was a nuisance, but eventually I drowned it out. I stopped paying attention. About a year after I moved in, this man's wife suddenly died. It was a sad time, and I became really close with him after that point. He has no one else to talk to now that he lives alone, so I would go over there often and just chill with him. This has been going on for 15 years. During these 15 years, Bob still kept the same job and worked the same shift, getting home at 3 a.m. When I mentioned earlier that I had my reasons for growing accustomed to the headlights in my window at that time, it was because it started becoming a sense of security, a sense that Bob had made it home safely another night. This went on for the past 15 years until recently when another neighbor who lives between us decided to build a shed that blocks Bob's driveway and blocks the lights from his car from coming in through my window. It is what it is, I guess. I can't be mad at a guy for building a shed on his property, but he took something away from me. I know it's stupid, but I'm going to miss the shining headlights in my room at 3 a.m. Now I'll just be up all night wondering if Bob made it home safely. Not the usual kind of stories that appear on the subreddit, but I felt this one was a little bit too, heartwarming to pass up on. Once annoying action becoming something that becomes a sense of security, which is then stripped away by another neighbor. In many circumstances, someone might be thankful the neighbor built a shed to block the incoming headlights, but in a shocking turn of events, it was something special and a way to know that, hey, my friend's home safe tonight. At first, I was prepared to go into this story suggesting that blackout curtains could just solve this problem, and seeing the 15 years, I was really about to be like, oh, you let this go on for 15 years without thinking of buying blackout curtains? But even in the first year, I'm glad he didn't. I suppose the reason why this story was posted here because the neighbor from hell is the one who built his damn shed. But can't really do much about that. As OP said, can't be mad at a guy for building a shed on his property. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.